Alright, we locked in for another tutorial. We're gonna do this bald fade on a kid. His parent brought him in. He brings him in about every 2 weeks to get a bald fade, which is a pretty clean bald fade. He got a nice gray hair. So I want to show y'all my step-to-step process while completing the bald fade. Like always, we're gonna start out by doing the initial bald line. For this, I'm using my cordless masters, which do a pretty good job. That way I don't have to put the trimmers on the little boy's head immediately while using the comb to comb down that hair that I'm taking off. As you can see, when dealing with kids, they move around a lot. You can see little man moving around, which, you know, it's nothing just to get his attention again. You want to allow them to kind of mix up a little bit in the chair, but once it's go time, you go ahead and grab their head and continue working on creating that bald line and combing down their hair. Allow for them to move, because with kids this age, their attention span is already short, and being that it takes about a solid 20 minutes to do a bald fade, you want to give them time and breaks in between so they can kind of mix up and move around a little bit. Then you want to grab their attention again and go back and work. So as you can see, my client is moving around, making faces at the camera. He's enjoying himself. He's having a good time. And it's good to allow them to do that, all while working. So next you want to go ahead and do the same exact steps on the other side. You're going to be just creating that ball line, going back over it if need be, but essentially it's the same exact steps. And you want to make sure that you're combing that hair down using that comb as well as that clipper. You're not a barber if you don't have a comb or a clipper, well, a comb or a brush in your opposite hand. So, and like I said, make sure you allowing these clients, especially if they're young, to kind of move around a little bit. That's why you'll see me work on his head a little bit, then kind of like step back and take a break. Because I have the fade blade on my cordless masters, the fade blade, if you close the lever all the way, it'll definitely create that bald line. So I like to use these when it comes down to doing a bald fade on my kids. That way I'm not doing too much work when I'm putting trimmers on their head. Because like I said, once you close that fade blade all the way, it's gonna create that illusion that it's completely bald. So. And you wanna take it nice and easy doing the kids' hair. Make sure you be extra gentle. You don't need them screaming ouch while you're doing their hair. And watch me grab my Barbershop Pro Gold FX trimmers, and I'm gonna go ahead on and take off the rest of that bulk. And it may look like, because I sped it up, it may look like I'm going hard, but I'm actually like being very gentle with the scalp. Just getting the rest of that hair completely off of his neck region in the back of the head. Getting it completely bald at this point. You want to make sure if you're missing spots to go back over those spots with the trimmer, because sometimes when you're using the clippers, they'll bite a little bit, or not necessarily bite, but they'll skip over certain parts because you're not applying the same pressure over that next area that you did in another area. So make sure you're getting it completely bald, because you don't want it to look patchy. And like I said, stepping back and allowing the client to kind of wiggle around and do his own thing, that helps out. That's why I'm showing you these parts. Because you need to know that when you're cutting the child's hair, it's very important for them to be able to just kind of wiggle around, move around, look in the mirror, because this is what they're going to do anyway. And then you jump right back in and you get back onto the cut. Alright, so now, like I said, I got my Barbershop Gold FXs, just cleaning up that bald line, finishing that up. blow drying the client off with the cool setting on, getting that extra hair off, brushing them down, making sure I got everything clean and squared away. And then we're gonna lead right into doing that first open blade. And we're gonna use my fade blade on this with my cordless masters just because it creates that clean look that we're gonna lock in. Doing that initial line, you don't necessarily have to scoop out, I don't feel like, with the initial line. I mean, I guess you can scoop out, but to me, I really don't feel like it really quite matters when you're doing that initial line. For the most part, I just kind of go straight up with it to create that initial guideline. As you can see, the hair is falling off real nice, and I'm going around the contour of his head, just making sure that the hair is coming completely off. And I'm doing the same thing around the entire scalp. Going straight up and down, keeping that line leveled, and keeping my blade open, just going straight up, taking out that bulk, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna clean up that bald line using the corners of the blades. And even if I don't have it perfect, we're gonna go back over with the cleanup work, but this is just creating the initial line. And sometimes I like to take a break and go back and fix certain spots. That's when you see me turning my clipper to one side, whichever way the hair grows. And make sure when you're doing this, you're doing a mirror image on both sides. So whatever you do on one side, you want to do to the other. Mirror image. As you can see, I kind of played with my blade a little bit. Closing that lever and opening the lever back up, because right now we're going to focus on getting out that line. And you can see the line where it's at, where that bald line is. You can clearly see it. So what you do is you want to turn your clippers halfway open, and you want to use the corners of your blade to kind of knock that line out. And once you start getting into using the corners of the blades, you're going to be able to just knock that line completely out with no issues. All while combing the hair and everything else, making sure it's laid down properly. So next we have our wall magic clips. That's what we're going to be using to put in our zero guideline. And you want to open the blade all the way up, starting out. Always remember, you start open, you end off halfway closed or practically close to close, depending on what line you're trying to move out. But like I said, you got your blade open, you're going with the grade of the hair, however the hair grows. That's the way you want to turn your clipper to get that zero guideline put in there properly. As you can see, when I went on the other side, I kind of like turned my clippers, which is really important. Follow the way the hair grows. The only way you can consider it against the grain is if you're going in the direction that the hair grows in the opposite direction. So if the hair grows sideways, you want to turn the clipper sideways. Always keep that in mind when you're doing a bald fade or whatever type of fade you're doing. Just whenever you're fading, make sure you follow the hair pattern and how it grows. When going in to remove that bulky, you want to go ahead on and turn your clippers halfway to remove that bulk. Initially, you just want to really play with your lever how you do. So there's no telling where the lever was exactly when I started playing with the lever, because really each client is going to be different, and when you're playing with that lever, it's going to be different depending on the type of hair texture you got. So next we go ahead on and we put on our 0.5, and that's going to create our next guideline. With the 0.5, you just kind of going up, because this fade is going to end pretty much at about like a 1.5, like we do the rest of our fades. But with the 0.5, we just kind of creating that smooth transition. And the reason why I took it to a 0.5 is because without that, it wouldn't necessarily look like a fade. It would just look like kind of like a high and tight, if you will. So you want to make sure that you're following each step. You want to go from that open blade to that 0 to that 0.5 to that 1.5, and then you use that 1 for cleanup work. Right then and there, I put on the 1 blade to go ahead on and start some of that cleanup work, like I was saying. And keep spinning that chair and looking in the mirror to make sure that this fade is coming out perfect. And as you can see, the 0.5, I still have a lot of work to do with it as far as knocking out that bulkiness that you can clearly see right there. Using the brush to brush it down. Looking back in that mirror, make sure everything is squared away. Okay, so back in brushing the hair down. And what you want to do next is just start your cleanup work. So you'll see me put on that 0 guard, and I got my blade open all the way up, using the corners of my blade to try to go ahead on and knock out that bulky line that you can see right there. The cleanup work is very important, which I told y'all that in my last video, that you always got to make sure you go back and do your cleanup work. You can go in and put all these different guidelines in, but if you don't do the cleanup work, the fade is never going to be complete all the way. So that's why I grabbed my 0 guard and I started playing with the lever to try to work that line up out of there. And for this portion, when I'm doing the cleanup work, you'll see me somewhat scooping out, and then you'll also see me using the corners of my blade. It's just different methods that you use to get the lines out of the scalp. So don't be afraid if you gotta do different things to get the line out. As a barber, you should be able to go ahead on and just try whatever you gotta try to get it out. Basically, one thing I know is that you can take the hair off, but you can't put it back. So you want to just be careful of that and make sure that you aren't going up or taking too much hair off, because once you do that, you've already went too far. So just light movement all around the head, knocking out those lines that I see, those errors that I see, to make it a smooth transition. Working around the head, doing the same thing on both sides, just knocking it out, doing that cleanup work. Next, I got my 1.5 guard on, and what I'm doing with this is just creating like that shaping when it comes down to that high ball fade. It's not necessarily a Boosie fade, but you want to make sure that you go up with that 1.5, because most fades end off with a 1.5. And the rest of it is usually like shaping, which I normally would do that with freehand, but there are different methods to do shaping with. But most fades, like I said, they start off with a closed blade and they end off with a 1.5 blade. So as you can see, I got my 1.5 blade on there. And I actually switched from my from my walls to my cordless masters to finish off with that 1.5 on the top. Brushing down that hair as usual, making sure it's laid down flat, so we continue to get this cleanup work done and give him the finishing touches to his high ball fade. I got my open blade on now, just making sure I knock out those errors that I see. Like I said, when you're doing cleanup work, you gotta make sure that you're going back to those areas that you may have missed and making sure it's totally clean, using the corners of the blade. As you can see, I got my clipper turned a certain ways because that's the way that his hair is growing in that area. So you wanna make sure you're knocking all of that stuff out. And also make sure you have that brush. You need a brush or a comb. You're not a barber if you're not using a brush or a comb. And like I said, once you take the hair off, you can't put it back. So when you're grabbing that open blade and you're using it to go back over certain areas, you got to make sure that you know what you're doing, because there's no room for errors in these positions. You know what I'm saying? It's no room for errors right now. Cleaning up that ball fade. As you can see, the little boy, he bouncing around. That's because that's what they do. They bounce around. You gotta give them time to recollect themselves and get back on the head, and then continue to work. I got my 1 guard on now, just finishing up that cleanup work, and I'm using that my walls weren't doing what I needed it to do. So sometimes you gotta switch tools out. That's why you gotta make sure you got multiple tools in your arsenal to make sure you get what you need to get done with those tools. So I guess I took them down to a 1, but either way it go, I used the 1.5 brought around the parietal ridge to make sure that fade came out well blended. Overall, like I said, you want to make sure that you go all the way up to a 1.5 because that's going to create that smooth transition with that fade. Although I used a 1 on the top, I still use that 1.5 on the parietal ridge. As you can see, I got the 1.5 and I'm working my way around the parietal ridge. And the reason why I took his haircut down is because, as you can see, he had a light area in the front of his head. So in order for me to even that out properly, I actually had to take his hair all the way down to that 1. That was the only way I could get it done. So that's why I did that. And right now we just basically finishing it up. I got my trimmer on them and I'm going back over it, making sure that I got, you know, the light areas that I may have missed. The cleanup work is like the most important part of the fade, next to the lineup, which we about to get into the lineup in a minute. With him, it's important that you brush that hair down and lay it down completely flat before you get up on that line up. And also follow the natural lineup. Don't try to create something he don't have. I use mousse to lay down the hair just because that helps me lay down the hair. And the mousse actually has a holding chemical in it where it'll hold. So I used the mousse to put on his head first, and then I went ahead and knocked out that line up. And the reason why I use the mousse is to supplement the spritz for the line up, because he has waves, you want to lay his hair down completely flat before you go ahead and jump onto that line up. And then he does have that light patch. But because he's a kid, I didn't spray any follicles on him because kids don't really need too much follicles anyway. And then you blow dry the hair. And then you just start tapping that line up lightly until you get it squared away. And then you got you a high ball fade on the channel. Subscribe to my channel. Lock in for my next YouTube tutorial. We're gonna be putting out a whole lot of stuff. Can't wait to see y'all next time.